Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Ray, and I have the honor of being the president of the college. And on behalf of the college and the community here, I want to welcome you and to thank you for coming to tonight's lecture by one of the state's most distinguished and perceptive public servants and longtime friend of Elmhurst College. I'm speaking, of course, of State Senator and gubernatorial candidate Kirk Dillard. As many of you know, here at Elmhurst, we are committed to fostering civic engagement among our students and in the larger community. Widely regarded as a destination for stimulating dialogue about some of the most pressing issues of the day, we welcome thousands of people here to our campus each year to hear some of the country's most thought-provoking discussions. Governor Edgar, in fact, has said that Elmhurst College has emerged as a leader among the institutions of higher learning in Illinois for its determined focus on civic engagement and service to the community. Now, we're really honored by that recognition. And appropriately this summer and fall, our focus has been on the challenges and opportunities facing our common source and object of civic engagement, the state of Illinois. In June, we launched Fixing Illinois, a great state's problems and promise, with the goal of starting an ongoing discussion about the challenges that Illinois faces today and empowering citizens to help address those challenges and move the state forward. Previous speakers in the series have included businessman and gubernatorial candidate Bruce Rauner, Illinois State Representative Dennis Reboletti, and political commentator Dan Proft. So to introduce our speaker this evening, it's my pleasure to bring to the podium my Special Assistant for Government and Community Relations, Lee Daniels, whose long career in the State House of Representatives, including distinguished service as the Speaker of the House, has earned him the abiding respect of the state and of Elmhurst College. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Lee Daniels.
Well, thank you, President Ray, and thanks all of you for being here tonight to share in another exciting event at Elmhurst College. And President Ray, your leadership here at the college is exemplary, and we appreciate all of that. So as you know, our state is facing immense challenges. Illinois is not only in need of effective, competent, and visionary leaders who will look beyond mere partisanship, but also needs an engaged, informed, and educated citizenry to help resolve these challenges. As Dr. Ray mentioned, this lecture is the next in the ongoing Fixing Illinois series. With pension reform looming, billions in unpaid bills, and the worst credit rating in the nation, our state is in crisis. This lecture series presents you an opportunity to hear on a variety of perspectives on this crises and potential ways to solve them. These lectures provide you, the engaged citizenry, with an opportunity to interact with the state's leaders and learn ways in which we can be involved in a positive way. We have done that previously, as Dr. Ray mentioned. Past Fixing Illinois series speakers have included businessman and gubernatorial candidate Bruce Rauner, political commentator Dan Proft, and Illinois State Representative Dennis Reboletti. Upcoming speakers will include State Representative Gene Ives, State Senator and gubernatorial candidate Bill Brady, State Senator Kwame Raoul, and Ralph Martyr, the Executive Director of the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability. Tonight, I am honored to be able to welcome, along with President Ray and the college community, Senator Kirk Dillard. Senator Dillard represents the 24th District, which, by the way, includes the northeastern portion of DuPage County and western Cook counties, and for your information, also includes this wonderful institution of learning, Elmhurst College. Senator Dillard is a candidate for governor. As a point of information, all candidates that have indicated their interest in running for governor have been invited, both Republican and Democrat, to speak in the Fixing Illinois series. Senator Dillard was recently appointed Assistant Republican Leader in Springfield and has long been the Republican spokesman on the Judiciary Committee. Prior to his election to the Senate, he served with distinction as the Chief of Staff to former Governor Jim Edgar and as a judge of Illinois Court of Claims. Senator Dillard recently was the recipient of the 2013 Champion of Free Enterprise Award given by the Illinois Chamber of Commerce. The Senator is an avid supporter of higher education, having served his alma mater, I might mention, what do we call them, the Leathernecks, Western Illinois University, as the alumni president. He served on the DePaul University College of Law Dean's Advisory Council and locally as a member of the College of DuPage Foundation Board. He is, I might add, a frequent visitor and speaker here at Elmhurst College and has been here on many occasions. Senator Dillard is a partner in one of the oldest law firms in the United States called Locke Lord, LLP. Senator Dillard and his wife Stephanie reside in Hinsdale with their 2 young daughters. So please, after Senator Dillard makes his comments, you will be given an opportunity to ask questions and answers. There'll be people with microphones on each side. We would ask you to go to the microphones because all of this is being recorded and we want to catch your remarks. And Senator Dillard will then recognize you for your questions, and of course he will answer them that. So it's my honor to introduce to you tonight our speaker, Senator Kirk Dillard. Tonight he will share with us his thoughts on the topic, making Illinois a destination economy for job creation and families. Please join me in welcoming Senator Kirk Dillard.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, and it is great to be here. I wish we had a retractable roof on this beautiful, beautiful fall evening, but it is my honor to be here again at Elmhurst College. President Ray, thank you very much for that gracious introduction. And I will tell you, I might be here giving a different lecture if Lee Daniels were still the Speaker of the Illinois House. I might be up here bragging that Illinois is the greatest place in America for economic development. But Lee, thank you so much, and your continued service to the state of Illinois. And wherever Pam Daniels went, Lee, you're only as good. Pam, thank you. It's great. It's great to see you here as well. For those of us who are in public life is a family endeavor, and Lee could not do what he did for all of the years without Pam, like my wife Stephanie, securing and being our partner in this business. I will tell you, when the Elmhurst College called and said, "Wow, can you speak on fixing Illinois?" I thought about, wow, where do I begin? Do I have a week-long series of seminars to do that? I don't think I have to tell you, this is a frustrating and difficult time to be an Illinoisan, especially someone like myself that was raised here, loves this state dearly. My mother was the chief surgical nurse at Hines Veterans Hospital. My father taught at Hinsdale Central High School for many, many years, and I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. And I want your grandchildren, my children, to be 15 minutes from us, not 15 hours in the future. So I have, when you're driving this great state, and I just came back from Teutopolis and Effingham today, I've had a lot of time to think about the state I love, how to make us what I call a destination economy for job creation, and how to make Illinois work again. This is the capital of the Midwest, folks. We should not have an unemployment rate twice as high as Iowa, and we should not, I was on the eastern border of Illinois today, be losing jobs like they're going out of style. In fact, Illinois has led the United States in out-migration of people over the last 8 to 10 years. More people have moved out of Illinois than any state in America, and let me tell you where they've gone. The majority of them have gone to the state of Indiana. So they're not moving out of here for the good weather or the sunny climates. They're moving out of here for economic reasons, for social reasons, but mostly economic. I will tell you, let me get it out of the way right now. People go, wow, you've been in the legislature for quite a while. You've been around state government. Aren't you part of the problem? And my answer to that is, I don't believe I am. I believe I'm the solution to the state's problems. I have a distinguished track record in state government. I will tell you, I haven't voted for the state's budgets in many, many years because they are way out of balance and the priorities are wrong. And I'll get into some of these wrong priorities. And I will also tell you that, I'm tested and proven. I've been there. And just a little recap, and with a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, I look forward but not backward. But I remember Illinois when it worked well. Very quickly, when I was the governor of Illinois' chief of staff, the last clean and competent governor of Illinois, who's spoken here at Elmhurst College, we inherited a $1 billion deficit in a recession, and we left $1.5 billion in the state treasury, a surplus. Could you imagine that? $1.5 billion surplus in Illinois, all without an income tax increase. And we paid Elmhurst Hospital's bills in 17 days, not 17 months, 17 days. And very importantly, the first time in the Illinois history, 200-year history of Illinois, the state's credit rating went up. So don't take Kirk Dillard's word for that it was good when Lee Daniels was around as the speaker. Wall Street said, Illinois, for the first time in your history, we're going to raise your credit rating. But the most important thing, the most important number was that Illinois' unemployment rate was well below the national average. And much of that credit goes to Lee Daniels, who is right here. And this is not a partisan event, but I will tell you that because of those good policies, Mike Madigan was not the Speaker of the House any longer, and Lee Daniels was. So I know what a state that runs on all cylinders looks like, and I believe that I have some of the solutions, and I'm not the problem to our state's problems. Amy, let's go to, is this what you call the second slide? Thank you. You know, this is a great state, and we have tremendous obstacles. The state has a backlog of bills of $6 billion. And the other party passed on the very last day of session a massive income tax increase, saying it would be temporary to pay off old bills. But we still have $6 billion of old bills. I don't think it's a secret that we have the worst funded pension system in America, over $100 billion. And I will tell you, if you use different accounting rules, our state's pensions problem is 50% to 60% bigger than those that you read about in the Chicago Tribune. It's much worse than it's been reported. We rate 45th in job creation. I told you that we're dead last in the Midwest, but you know, our unemployment rate in Illinois is more than twice that of Iowa. And when I drove the other day from Rock Island to Davenport, Iowa, to go to the radio station that Ronald Reagan once announced in, it's like going to the Emerald City. I drive over the Mississippi River, but on the Iowa side, I see all kinds of new construction. I see new homes being built, and literally, physically, I can tell the difference between my home state of Illinois and the state of Iowa, and that is unacceptable. We have an unemployment rate only higher than Nevada in this country, and our unemployment rate at about 1 in 10 people in Illinois is just quite frankly sickening. I look at all of the other peer states of Illinois, and they're picking up jobs, and we are losing jobs. Since the current governor took office, we've lost 11,100 jobs, and a very sad statistic is that Illinoisans are making less money on average than they did 10 years ago. So economically, those who are lucky enough to have a job actually are losing ground, and that is not a good trend. Let's go on, Amy, if we could, to what I call the third slide. Without a doubt, you know, the economic collapse of America was a problem, but much of this job loss started in Illinois after the big economic collapses. We have lost more jobs in Illinois over the last decade than all of the other states that are our peer states, for sure. Texas, you know, we all sometimes like to make fun of Governor Rick Perry, and you remember him from the debates. Texas has added 1.8 million jobs. Illinois has lost jobs. Texas has added almost 2 million jobs in the same time period. There are many reasons that we are lagging behind, but if Illinois had just added the jobs that were added on a national or Midwestern basis, we'd have 283,000 more people working today. That's more than our second largest city's population, Peoria. And we are just not making the grade with respect to job creation. Let's go on to number 4. And we are, as I said, the capital of the Midwest. We are rich in resources. We in Illinois have 32 Fortune 500 companies. That is more than twice as many as any other Midwestern state. And, we've got McDonald's up the road. I was the sponsor of the law that lured the Boeing Corporation's world headquarters from Seattle to Chicago, and that's a good thing. I just read in the business section of the Tribune a week ago that there are 9 manufacturing companies, smaller, medium-sized manufacturing companies, that are manufacturing because really Boeing's headquarters is in Illinois, and all of those plants are in Rockford, Illinois. And, the large corporations are important, but it's the small and family and medium-sized companies that provide 85 to 90% of the jobs. But Illinois has more than twice as many Fortune 500 companies as any other state in the Midwest. Navistar, we do have good things that happen. Navistar just moved its headquarters back from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Lisle and Naperville. Again, a bill that I sponsored helped move them back over here. And we're not talking about giving away the stores. We're talking about changes in tax policy for a couple of years to help lure them here. But Navistar, with many, many engineers paying 6-figure salaries, are in the Naperville and Lisle area. And that move back during a real economic slowdown for realtors and others was a tremendous advantage for DuPage County, and I'm very proud of it. Even though we're in the suburbs, having just come from downstate, we don't sometimes realize that agriculture is our state's largest industry. 1 in 4 jobs in Illinois comes from agriculture. And those numbers that I showed you, if a quarter of our economy was not agriculture or farm-related, they would be much, much worse. And Illinois is lucky. We have a diverse economy, but without that agriculture base over the last 6 to 8 years, our numbers would be more pathetic than they are today. Agriculture, is not always just the family farm. It could be Sara Lee, it could be Kraft, and it could be the Chicago Board of Trade, it could be the John Deere Corporation, a great corporation that sits in Moline, Illinois. Billions and billions of dollars do flow from our agriculture economy, and as Governor Mitch Daniels, who's now the president of Purdue University, Alan told me the other day, he goes, look, I wish Indiana had Illinois' per acreage yield of corn and soybeans. So we are the agriculture, industrial, cultural, and the financial services capital of the Midwest. And for us to have these numbers, again, is absolutely, absolutely unacceptable. My vision of Illinois in terms of how we turn it around really begins with one of the God-given things, and that's where we're located. We are located dead center in the most important area in the United States of America. Nobody has more rail miles or better infrastructure than we do. Metra, the commuter rail system, of which many of us take to work every day, is a godsend. And most cities, other than New York City, have nothing like Metra. The CTA, while it had a little problem today, the CTA is a pretty dependable source of transportation for millions of people to get to their classes. I went on the CTA to my pediatrician as a child when I was living in the city of Chicago. So we have so much going for us. Nobody except Atlanta has an airport as good as O'Hare, and we have Midway to boot, and Rockford is an international airport of which UPS uses as a major hub every night. So we need to build on our strengths. And the distribution economy, go look at a town in my district called Bolingbrook. Go look at those warehouses that sit at 53 and the Stevenson Expressway. Go look at an intermodal hub that is second to none. It's mind-boggling in Joliet, where 3 different rail lines come in and we serve with great jobs the transportation needs of all of the Midwest. And we got to capitalize on our infrastructure. We've got to keep it up. There's discussions going on whether we do Daniel Burnham's plan to build something called the Ileana Expressway, between Kankakee and the south suburbs of Chicago. But we need to capitalize on our location. We have, and we all like to beat up on Commonwealth Edison, but I think, Lee, you may have still been in the House. Illinois deregulated electricity about a decade ago. And Illinois today has electric costs that are essentially below the national average, but quite reliable as electric goes. Now, we've had our problems in Elmhurst and other places, but for manufacturers and the kind of people that use massive amounts of electricity, we are head and shoulders above most of the United States of America. I was at Archer Daniels Midland, the supermarket to the world in Decatur, the other day, and I think you probably read that this 5,000 person company in central Illinois is going to move its world headquarters probably to Chicago. That's only 100 or so jobs. Those are the corporate jobs. But the real agriculture jobs are in central Illinois. And I asked ADM the other day, I said, Illinois does a lot of stuff wrong. We overtax, we overregulate, we've got a lot of stuff wrong. But what do we do right? And they said, electricity. We have stable electricity. It's cheaper than most places in the United States. And when we're drying all the corn and soybeans that are being cut and harvested, you know, the electric rates in Illinois make Illinois a good place to be. So we need to use our God-given place in the Midwest, and we've got to take care of our infrastructure. I spent a lot of time along the Ohio and Mississippi and Illinois rivers, and when I go to some of these towns, they instantly talk about making sure that barge traffic, including ADM, which sends lots of that grain from the Illinois down to the Mississippi, down out through the port of New Orleans, we must also take care of our rivers, and nobody has a river system as good as we do, and we just don't think about that sometimes up here. Our workforce. Elmhurst College is a great example. Lee, when he introduced me, said I'm on the College of DuPage Foundation Board. Nobody has a higher education system anywhere in America better than Illinois. Just start with the small private colleges that we have here. You know, I'm blessed, Alan. I've got you. I've got Wheaton College, which is a national college, you know, sort of different than most. I've got North Central. I've got Benedictine. And then you branch out. I went to Western Illinois University. I was at Eastern Illinois University today. Southern Illinois University is the region's leader and so important to Southern Illinois. But we've got the DePauls, the Loyolas, you name it, we have it. Our community college system is second to none of any state in America, and I have a plan called Best in Class Education, and community colleges are crucial to retraining our workers and training our workers, especially first-generation students, many of whom transfer here to Elmhurst College. But we have a community college system that is second to none of any in the United States. I would submit, along with Cuyahoga Community College, that the College of DuPage is one of the top 2 community colleges in America, although I was at Elgin and Harper Colleges last week, and those are just spectacular institutions. The University of Illinois produces more and better computer science graduates at the highest levels than any other university in America. In fact, Bill Gates, in most of his speeches, says that he has more University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign graduates working for Microsoft than any other university in America. So what's the problem with that, folks? The problem is we've taken these kids who are educated at York High School and the University of Illinois, and we've got a great deal. It's like training a fighter pilot. We got a great deal invested in these people, but they're living on these high incomes in Seattle, Washington, not in the state of Illinois, and that's got to change. But the University of Illinois, I would submit, is also the #1 engineering school, and it produces more physicians than any other university in America. And then when I was with Governor Daniels, he said we could arm wrestle over whether the U of I or Purdue was the #1 engineering school in America. But he said, you know, you got something else in Chicago that nobody else has. You got two top 10 universities within 20 minutes of each other, you know, in the University of Chicago and Northwestern. And then he just kind of looked at me and he says, and how you can rate dead last in economic development, Senator, is beyond me. So we have a highly skilled workforce. We have many more people with a bachelor's degree in Illinois on a percentage basis than our Midwestern neighbors do. And we certainly should not be where we are. We need to use, and we have 2 federal laboratories that I think are underutilized, Fermilab and Argonne. And I know a lot about Argonne because it used to be in my Senate district, and I do some work with the University of Chicago, which partners with Argonne. But Argonne right now is a leader in 2 industries that are just crucial to our future: battery technology, Argonne is the #1 research institution in the United States of America. It's right down the road in Lamont in batteries. And if we're ever going to end our foreign dependence on fossil fuels and other things, you've seen the Tesla automobile is being driven around now. It's kind of remarkable. There was a big story on Tesla this week in the Chicago in the Tribune. But battery technology is crucial to the future of the United States, and Argonne's the leader in that kind of research. And then nanotechnology, and I'm not a science, I'm a science wannabe, but nanotechnology, again, Argonne, a national leader, along with that little wildcat university, Northwestern, holds great promise, and they're all here in Illinois, and we need to capitalize on that. So what's gone wrong? Let's figure out what's gone wrong here. It's a variety of factors. No one thing got us here, and we didn't get into this mess in a year. And as good a governor as I might be, we're not going to get out of it in a year as well. I told you that the 2008 economic storm was bad. But other states kind of prepared for a rainy day better than we did. Illinois has had no rainy day fund in its state government. We've never had that. Springfield has tended to spend every dime it has, and other states have rainy day funds. And it's one of the reasons we have the lowest credit rating in America as well. Wall Street likes to see some little cushion around, just like they'd like to see some cushion around in case you lost your job or you have a health catastrophe. Illinois never really had a rainy day fund. So we were in a hole before the recession hit. This state, for the last 10 years, has had a pattern of living way beyond its means. Who can ever forget that we once had a governor that wanted to give free rides to senior citizens on every mass transit route so that a law partner of mine who makes a great income in Hinsdale could ride for free if they were 62 years of age or over to their job every day, but maybe they're cleaning people or their employees or a student had to pay to ride the train eastward or westward from Cicero or from Berwyn or whatever. We used to have a statistic, and this one is one that really is cause for alarm. When George Ryan was the governor, 1 in 9 people in Illinois was on some form of welfare. Today, it's basically 1 in 3. So the welfare rolls have tripled in the last 10 years. Not me, I voted no, but the state has quadrupled its debt. And then the pension crisis, and there's plenty of blame to go around for the pension crisis, but that administration, the Edgar administration I work for, the pension liability today is unfunded pension liability 9 times greater than when that administration ended. Let me just tell you, too, there's no long-term plans in Illinois. That is one thing that has always driven me crazy, both as a staffer. There's just no long-term plan. And this state needs a 5-year, a 10-year, and a 20-year plan. And it needs to be followed, and it needs to be implemented, and it needs to be drafted by experts, not just one particular politician or governor. But the poor decisions that have been made with respect to the state of Illinois are just absolutely unacceptable. I will tell you, too, that our history of corruption, the cadence of corruption, as I call it, is a killer. And I'll give you a real living example of how it is a killer. And along with our pension liability, there's a University of Chicago graduate, so he's local, who wanted to build a multi-billion-dollar fertilizer plant. So agriculture, our state's largest industry, a multi-billion-dollar fertilizer plant. And he crunches the numbers, and it's cheaper for him to put that plant in Iowa than to put it in Illinois. And so, the grass is not always greener on the other side. I will tell you, Wisconsin's taxes are a heck of a lot higher than Illinois. So the grass is not always greener on the other side. Be cheaper for him to put that plant in Illinois. But why is that plant today sitting west of the Mississippi River in Iowa? And his answer was this to the Chicago Tribune. I'm an MBA from the University of Chicago. I can read a balance sheet. And I know that Illinois has the largest unfunded pension liability of any state in America. And I know if the current crop of characters, all from the city of Chicago who run state government, that they're going to come look into business to pay the $100 billion back. I don't want to be here to be the target for my business having to pay back $100 billion of unfunded liability. And then he put the big asterisk on there. And he said, and let me tell you one other reason that I went to Iowa. Illinois has a culture of corruption that I do not like. So that culture of corruption, and I believe you got to lead by example on ethics, that culture of corruption kills us. It kills us in the economic marketplace every day. I will also tell you that, and I was just with Dan Cronin from Elmhurst, who's our county board chairman. DuPage County went out to refinance some debt. And you pay a zip code penalty for being in Illinois. I was with the mayor today of Effingham, and we talked about this. You know, you may have a perfect credit rating, and DuPage County has an absolutely perfect credit rating. We are one of only a couple of counties in the United States of America that has a perfect credit rating. We have a perfect credit rating, but we don't borrow at perfect credit rating rates. We have to pay a zip code penalty for being in the state of Illinois. So your property taxes and your local taxes, whether you're York High School or whether you're the county of DuPage, your property taxes have pressures to go up just because you're located in Illinois. And the state of Illinois' problems affect us locally. They affect your school district, and they affect the borrowing cost of the counties or municipalities in which you live. Just taking a look here. We have got to make this state work again. And Amy, let's also. I'm just looking at the, where do we go from here? We have got to reduce the cost of doing business in the state of Illinois. We got to put our fiscal house in order. We've got to have stability brought back into state government. And stability comes in a lot of different ways. It comes in a legislature that's dependable and does things and responds to problems, whether it's pensions or others. Lee was there. He knows what it's like to have differences with the other political party, but to move the state forward. You also need stability in your governor. And our governors have been the punchlines of late night talk show jokes. And, there's no secret to what's going on. I mean, Governor Branstad of Iowa is just a simple guy. He's not flashy. Lee knows him. But, their unemployment rate is half of what ours is because Iowa provides stability for people that want to move their business there. We fail on so many fronts, but I will tell you that, employers go where they have stability, and the lack of stability is just a real problem. We got to have a state, too, where you want to raise your kids. And, we read about the problems with Chicago and crime. I fight that every day, and I try to tell people, look, what you read in the newspapers from Chicago is not happening all over the place. But our image has to improve, not only with the Wall Street Journal, but on Main Street as well as the United States Chamber of Commerce. We have got to let the income tax, which was enacted at the middle of the night, we have got to roll that back. And if you want to know how to do it, and if you're an insomniac, there are 4 places I urge you to go to look more at my specific plans for Illinois. I have 2 websites. The first one is kdillard.com, kdillard.com. And on that website, there's something called Reality Check. And in Reality Check, it's a little green box. We show you how over time you can roll back a 67% income tax increase that was supposed to be temporary to pay off old bills. But we give you a menu there. But Illinois we must roll, if not all of that tax back. It was instantly, when it went into effect, our unemployment rate shot up by more than 1%. So there is a direct correlation between unemployment numbers and the taxes that you have. Also on that website is my plan to make Illinois a destination economy. Take a look at what's called the Senate Jobs Recovery Plan. I'm an author, or primarily the author of that plan, and that's where my destination economy plan for Illinois is contained. It gives you 40 tips on how to make Illinois a business-friendly state, of which I can't go into all of the specifics, including different kinds of things we need to do with respect to utility taxes for manufacturing. It's got a number of ideas from other states that work very well. And then the last one is my best-in-class education program, and we'll save that for another day. But education does go hand in glove with your economic development. I'm a firm believer, whether my daughters like to do their math or not, in science and technology and engineering and mathematics. And then it was interesting, down in Effingham, the mayor today said that, what are you going to do about vocational education? And I said, look, I have a German grandfather who constantly believed, as well as many manufacturers, in the German manufacturing model. Not everybody, Alan, is going to be able or should go to Elmhurst College, as much as we think that might be. There are some that are better off in vocational and training programs. We need to tell people that manufacturing is a great industry to go into, but they got to be able to do math, and they got to be able to use computers. And you can use the College of DuPage, and you can use vocational programs to train them. But there are a number of things on the educational front we must do. Amy, let's go on to whatever I call slide 7 here. One of the things that this state definitely needs to do, and I mentioned planning, but we need a team of economic advisors, some academics, although in fact, Professor Hewings from the University of Illinois is at Urbana-Champaign. He's my major economist that helps me, but labor experts, and a governor who's engaged every day in job creation. And we need a long-term 5, 10, and 20-year plan. We don't and will not turn this around overnight. But there are some things that we immediately need to do. One of which is to take our workers' compensation system in Illinois and take it one step further. We made changes a couple of years ago that saved about $500 million for Illinois employers, but we need to go further. Illinois, in our workers' compensation system, does not have something called a causation factor. You don't have to prove that your workplace caused your injury. And that continues to beleaguer and drive up the cost immensely of our workers' compensation insurance. We have high property taxes in the state, but workers' compensation cost for similar factories, for Caterpillar tractor or for John Deere, are 3 to 7 times higher in Illinois than they are in our surrounding states. Caterpillar is building a new plant, but they're building it in Texas. And workers' compensation continues to be a real problem, and there are some easy solutions we can do there, and we must do there. So I can go on and on with the list of changes we need to make. You can look at the different plans I got out there. But the bottom line is we got to put a brake on spending. Every year, and this year again, they're spending $1.3 billion more than last year in Springfield, and we are spending, and we are spending. And they just put another 300,000 people. I voted no, as did all my Republican colleagues. The very last thing we did before we left Springfield in May was we put another 300-some thousand people on welfare in Illinois, under the guise that the federal government will pay for it for a couple of years. But the next governor, whether it's myself or Pat Quinn or whoever, will have another $4 billion balloon note for welfare expansion. So we must put the brakes on spending. Let's go on to slide number 8, if we can. And, there are... Got to get rid of the income tax increase. We need a top-to-bottom look at every tax and fee in Illinois. Our regulatory environment, another story, and I do believe in real stories, not anecdotes. Governor Daniels of Indiana said, Kirk, I have 2 factories that wanted to move to Illinois that sit on the western border of Indiana. And again, it's sort of like that fertilizer plant in Iowa. He goes, but you know, they crunched the numbers and it would be cheaper for them to be in Illinois, and they wanted to be in Illinois, but they can't get an answer from your state government in Springfield. They can't get phone calls returned. They can't get their paperwork done. And we have a regulatory environment that, to me, having worked for 2 governors, is unrecognizable. You can't get answers. We double and triple regulate in Illinois. And we need to implement much-needed reforms, and I'll give you 2. I believe this state needs a constitutional amendment that says that if the legislature doesn't have a balanced budget, so Pat Quinn, to his credit, you know, he stopped our pay until we do pension reform, and that's fine, but that's not a real long-term solution. I think that we need a constitutional amendment that says if the legislature doesn't balance its budget by generally accepted accounting principles, that we don't get paid. So I've always espoused that, and that is one. I also believe we need a constitutional amendment, and I believe you lead by example. Again, I think we need a constitutional amendment that stops legislative pensions prospectively, and it also stops all pensions for part-time elected officials. And then last but not least, leading by example on ethics, I have sworn that when I get elected as the governor and sworn in as the governor of Illinois, I will close my campaign fund. We have a history of pay-to-play politics that is unacceptable. We know that it drives businesses out of here, and I believe that this state is in such a mess, its governor needs to spend all its time governing, not fundraising. So I will not have a campaign fund unless and determined that I want to run for re-election or that I'm worthy of re-election. But for a while, for a couple of years, there's going to be no campaign fund, and it'll be the nose to the grindstone. And you lead by example on ethics. What's the next slide, Amy? Okay. You know, we are the capital of the Midwest, just to wrap up. We should not be a national laughingstock. We should be a national leader. And all of the Midwest is tied in economically. I meet with the other governors all the time. And, you know, they all say, when they sort of put their arm around me and kind of walk me out of their capital or wherever we meet, you know, we need a healthy Illinois. We good-naturedly kid each other. But, you know, when Illinois is healthy, Indiana's GDP is a lot better. You buy our products, the governor of Michigan will tell you, I want a healthy Illinois because I want you Illinoisans to come up here and spend money or to buy automobiles that are made in Detroit. And the governor of Wisconsin will tell you the same thing. So we are the capital of the Midwest, and all of America has a vested interest in a healthy Illinois. We have got to stop squandering our resources. Those are those God-given resources, and put them on a focus that's good for us, including making sure that our roads aren't crumbling, and we take care of our infrastructure, and we reinvest in education. And I will tell you, if there's one part of the state budget that's been cut, it is mostly higher education, but education has not kept up. The pension crisis, and everybody liked to make fun of Governor Quinn because he had a python that said the pension problem was squeezing out other services, but Pat's right on that, folks. Whether it's senior citizens programs, whether it's having to let prisoners out before they've served their full sentence because we don't have the money to run the Department of Corrections, or whether it's education, until we get a handle on that pension crisis, we have got to refocus our resources. And we also need to be a state, and I'm up here, but I spend a great deal of time downstate. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. We need a two-party system in Illinois. The governor has to be the arbiter of where the money goes and to make sure it's distributed fairly. It's something I learned from Governor Edgar. I had to tell Mayor Daley no on occasion, never pleasant to do that. And I had to tell Speaker Madigan no a lot because Lee wouldn't tell him. He made me send him to tell him no. But we need geographic balance in the state, and we need a two-party system. And it's really apparent when I travel downstate that downstate Illinois really feels like they've been left out of the equation. We feel that sometimes out here in the suburbs, but we must have a state that is that uses its resources in a balanced fashion. And Chicago City Hall cannot control everything in Illinois. Right down below here, one morning, Speaker Madigan came to speak to Elmhurst College. And we were discussing the pension crisis, and it was the first time that Speaker Madigan, so he made news here at Elmhurst College, said, you know, the suburbs in downstate are getting a free lunch with respect to teacher pensions, and that he proposed that we take teacher pensions for the suburbs in downstate and move them onto our real estate tax bills or our local government bills. And Mike said it right here in this particular building for the first time. So, you know, I wasn't born yesterday. I wanted to go back and see if the suburbs in downstate were getting a free lunch, like Speaker Madigan, who got his free breakfast, said downstairs. We did a study. Senator Radogno, Christine Radogno, is my leader in the state Senate. Chris commissioned a study, and we have shown that over the last 8 or 9 years, the Chicago Democrats, because they do control everything, unbeknownst to the legislature, because they control the State Board of Education, have moved almost $1 billion, that's with a B, out of the general state aid formula, changing 2 computer factors. One is something called the property tax replacement, that we have property tax caps out here. There's a factor for property taxes, and there's also one for poverty. And they've changed these 2 weighting factors unbeknownst to the legislature and moved $800 million to $1 billion out of suburban and downstate schools and all to the city of Chicago. We have high property taxes. Lee Daniels actually was the sponsor, I believe, of property tax caps that put reasonable limits for inflation on property taxes, and nobody has higher property taxes than those who live out here in the suburbs. But 90% of all of the property tax limitation replacement money from Springfield goes to the Chicago public schools. It doesn't go to Glen Ellen, doesn't go to Elmhurst. It goes to the city. And then a poor child in Elmhurst or Bensonville, to me, is the same as a poor child in Chicago. In fact, a recent study last week showed that there are more people living in poverty in Chicago, in the suburbs, than there are in Chicago. So, you know, the demographics have greatly changed. There are more poor people in the suburbs today than there are in the city of Chicago, but yet 6 or 8 times more per kid goes to Chicago for a, quote, poverty child than one in Westmont. And Westmont's where my district office is. You know, up to 20% of the kids in Westmont, it's hard to believe, are, quote, poverty children. So, you know, we need fairness in the way that our government is run, and that is one way to, you know, one way to improve this state. There's no shortcut to these solutions, folks, and the one-size-fits-all doesn't work. This is a state with incredibly diverse and unique diversity, and that's a strength, and we need a state that is for all of us, and that is one thing that I think will be great. Let me just close by saying, you know, not only do I want questions from you, I want suggestions. I don't have all the answers, and I need your help. Nobody can do this all together, but we got to make this a place that's a destination economy for people that create jobs, and that way it'll be a good place to raise a family and grow up like it was for me. So let's make Illinois again the capital of the Midwest. I thank you for being here, and with that, what questions or suggestions do you have for me? Also quiet.
Thank you. Okay. My question is regarding pension reform. Since we know that this is one of the 800-pound gorillas in the room, what specifics would you suggest, or when you become governor, what would you put forward specifically to fix that problem?
Everybody has to do something. So I think the current employees, you know, are going to have to pay a little more into the system, and you're going to hear they've been paying in. But the problem is they've been paying into a system that has some real systemic problems. So everybody's got to do their part. Obviously, the state has to make its pension payments. The state also has to change its actuarial assumptions. We've been assuming that the stock market is growing regularly at 8%. I mean, that's just not realistic. We're living longer. That's a good problem. So guess what? You know, new employees and others are going to have to work longer. And then a big one. And I was just with Mayor Emanuel. He says it's about half his pension problem in Chicago. The state of Illinois has been giving compounded COLA raises, 3%, compounded year after year after year to employees when inflation has been 0 to 1%. And Mayor Emanuel says that's half his problem are those compounded COLA increases. So we're not going to give compounded COLA increases at greater than the rate of inflation. You're going to have to work longer. Everybody's going to have to pay a little more. For state employees, we now charge state employees for health care. It was kind of hard to believe that retired state employees paid nothing. Teachers pay for retired health care, but state employees paid nothing. Governor Quinn signed the law, I voted for it, that now lets us charge retired state employees for their health care. But it's a whole number of factors, including keeping your fingers crossed that the stock market and the real estate market comes back. And the real estate market's probably never going to come back like it was, but the stock market's been doing well. So it's a combination of everything. And if I have one criticism of the governor, it is you got to lead. You got to lock people in the mansion. And there is no bigger crisis that has ever faced the state of Illinois than this pension crisis. It has stifled economic development. It hurts everybody. It hurts school children. It hurts retirees. It puts law enforcement in jeopardy. He should have locked everybody in and not let us go on to other topics until the pension crisis was solved. And you read in the paper, we're doing concealed carry bills, we're doing gay marriage, we're doing all this other stuff. But look, folks, there's no bigger crisis that's ever faced Illinois, other than probably during the Second World War, when we were wondering whether our country would survive, than the pension crisis. And Pat has not led there. He's got a legislature that's controlled by his own party. And I would submit that's part of the problem. I mean, the Democrats infight, and if you had a two-party system, there would be plenty of Lino's about putting something together called a structured roll call. A two-party system just works best, and the governor should have locked everybody up. He's been the governor for 5 years. It's he uses $5 million a day. We Senate Republicans think it's up to $17 million a day of interest. So every day that he thinks around, $17 million is incredible amounts of money. It's more than $1 for my 12-year-old or 10-year-old or every child that's running around the streets of Elmhurst. It's unconscionable. So it's a variety of things, and you can put the package together. Everybody's going to have to do more, and you can still have a good pension as a retiree, but it can't be one that's giving you raises more than the rate of inflation. That's just crazy. And for new folks who are going to live longer than I am, they're going to have to work longer. Hope that answers your question. Thank you all for hanging in here on a beautiful night, too.
What do you think is the major obstacle to the pension reform difficulty? And maybe there's more than one, but just could you talk about that a little bit? We all know that it's a problem, but what's standing in the way right now?
I think the Senate Democrats in particular are very beholden to public employee unions. And I think literally, and the partisan divide now in the state Senate is the greatest it's ever been in history. So there's 40 Democrats and 19 Republicans. I'm part of a veto-proof minority. So not only they can do whatever they want. They don't, on any veto they can override. We can't block any veto of theirs. But there's 40 of them now, and it's literally the public employee unions really do have a lockstep on particularly, they do on some House Democrats, but particularly the Senate Democrats. That's the biggest one. I'm not sure the Democrats, I never could quite figure out the speaker, as Lee knows, the current speaker, he plays his cards close to his vest. you know, his daughter is not going to run for governor. I always figured, okay, you know, he was going to maybe take care of this before his daughter became governor, so she didn't have to. But now he may be waiting for me to become the governor. So then I got to be the big bad guy, and I'm a big boy. I mean, I'll take the full heat for doing pension reform if that's what it is. Again, I'm just a believer that a two-party system works best. That's historically how it's been in Illinois. But the Senate Democrats really are afraid of the public employee unions. I think that's your biggest obstacle, to try to keep it as simple as possible. I'd say in the Senate, Republicans, most of us are for the pension reform bill. So, Sean, do you have a question? Or are you just scratching your head?
Yeah, Mr. Dillard, I want to first of all thank you for your positive comments.
No, thank you. And I try not to be too dour. 'Cause
Well, what I'm referring to
there are brighter days ahead.
What I'm referring to is I'm a frequent contributor to the Voice of the People and the Tribune, and I've gotten comments from you, and I appreciate
I read
that.
your letters. Thank
Along
you.
those lines, though, my question is that we currently have what I refer to as a de facto governor in the state who is an Irish politician from the South Side. Nothing against the Irish voters. But he's an Irish politician from the South Side who is, in my eyes, has been the de facto governor of the state for a number of years. Assuming you're elected governor and assuming that the legislature continues to be in the proportion it is now with Democrats and Republicans, how do you plan on dealing with him and trying to take some of the wind out of his sails, other than possibly putting him in an Arctic ice floe and sending him away?
You know, and this is, I have a standard answer to that when I'm at partisan gatherings, but it is, and I alluded to it earlier. You know, when we were in charge, when Lee was the speaker and Governor Edgar was the governor, we did make Mike Madigan the minority leader. We did it through the ballot box. And how did we do that? Sound policy, an unemployment rate that was well below the national average. And, you know, good government is good politics. And, you know, that's one way that I would propose to do it. But the speaker, you know, I've dealt with them before. I mean, we made that Democrat legislature before Lee became the speaker, you know, with Lee's help. We ground them down and we said, look, we're going to have a balanced budget, you know, and until we do, Mike, we're going to be in. And I think, Lee, we were in the hot days of summer in July. We kept the legislature in for 17 extra days. Lee was the minority leader. Madigan was the speaker. But, you know, you just got to grind them down. And, you know, I've dealt with them before. You know, I was the sponsor of the changes for McCormick Place's work rules. McCormick Place, another great thing in Illinois. McCormick Place is worth billions of dollars to our economy. If you work for United Airlines or a hotel, McCormick Place is just crucial to us. Speaker Madigan, to his credit, I was the Senate sponsor, but the Speaker was really the driving force, you know, in the House. We made work rule changes that we didn't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And so, you know, I know a little bit on how to deal with carpenters and the electricians and the trade unions to get them to give concessions so that we continue to be the #1 convention center here. But I've dealt with Speaker Madigan before. I'll deal with him again. I know how all the puzzle pieces fit together. I've lived in downstate Illinois, I've lived in the city, and I've lived out here. And this is probably the most diverse state in America. And that's one thing that makes it very difficult to govern. I mean, Metropolis, Illinois is closer to Atlanta, Georgia than it is the city of Chicago. And it's way closer to Atlanta, Georgia in terms of culture than it is the city of Chicago. But I've dealt successfully, I guess is the way you put it, with Speaker Madigan, or professionally. But I can make the Democrat legislature live within its means, and that's not something you can learn except from guys like him or Governor Edgar. It's just, you know, I need no training. I am tested and prepared, and with all due respect to the other guys running, I've been there. I've done it. $1.5 billion surplus, credit rating went up. Madigan was the speaker for most of that time, as much as I wanted Lee to be the speaker all the time. So I've done it. I've been there. And Mike Madigan knows if I had my way, I'd make him the minority leader again. But that doesn't mean your government shuts down. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. It seems that every time when there's a deadline, whether it's the end of session or, you know, something that needs to be done, rather than doing what needs to be done, gambling comes up as an issue. they pass a gambling bill at midnight, at the end of session almost every year. And in fact, Governor Quinn himself even said that they have to eat their spinach, before going to the shiny golden, glow of more gambling. And right now, with just 1 year of the Video Gaming Act under our belts, there's been $175 million lost from the Illinois economy. 100 million of that was split equally between the route outfits and bars. And right now, with just over 9,000 machines out there, the projections were 45,000 to 65,000 machines eventually. So that's like, 5 to 6 times more than what we have right now. Another $500 million. And then there's the bill to have 5 more casinos when we have 10 now. It'll come up again this next session. How do we stop this continuous expansion of gambling?
It is a way that some of my colleagues look for what they call easy money, and there are tremendous social costs to gambling, but it's easier than addressing some of these problems. It's also a way to feed an insatiable appetite for spending. I mean, I told you, they tripled the welfare rolls, and we spend more on Medicaid in Illinois than we do on education. That's not Kirk Dillard's priority. My priority would be education first. And so, it's a way to feed their habit of increased spending. Billions more this year than last year. Put another 300,000 people on the welfare rolls the last day of session. And it's the easy way out, as opposed to doing the kinds of things, changes in your workers' compensation law, trying to keep your taxes down, trying to make us economically competitive. You got to make difficult decisions. And gambling is, in their mind, not my mind, but in their mind, an easy way to find revenue. In fact, some, I say, I don't like the 5 new casinos. They go, well, where else are we going to get the money? And I say, well, how about cutting Medicaid and doing some things? And when I say cut Medicaid, I'm talking about doing a couple of things. Most of it is combating fraud. No one has been combating fraud in Medicaid in a number of years. And I will tell you, the guy that I work for wanted to know, he wanted to know welfare numbers every week, and how come there's a spike in welfare numbers. But I think you gotta curtail spending, and that curtails some of that appetite for gambling. And I certainly don't like 5 new casinos. I agree with Governor Quinn. This is a couple times now tonight I've agreed with Governor Quinn. I agree with Governor Quinn that if Chicago is going to have its casino, it's got to be regulated by the state of Illinois the same way that other casinos are regulated, and you can't let Rahm Emanuel, regulate his own casino. So I don't disagree with the governor on everything, and I agree with some of the things, including Governor Quinn saying that bill is way too big. But you got to curtail spending, and I think some of my colleagues take the easy way out. They think it's the way to find easy revenue, and it's the most horrid way. The best way to put more money in the state treasury, if you need it, is to put people to work in the private sector. It's amazing how fast your treasury will grow when you put people to work. And again, I know our numbers, we've lost 11,000 some jobs since Pat Quinn's been governor, and if we just would have done what the other states had, we'd have 283,000 more people working in Illinois. We'd have the money. We wouldn't have to do casinos. And if we were Texas, we'd have 2 million more jobs. So it's the easy way out, and it's the insatiable appetite to spend that drives Terry Link from Waukegan and Lou Lang to push for more gambling. Hey, Kev.
Hey, thanks for coming out tonight and highlighting some of the state's problems and some of your solutions. You mentioned earlier the welfare problem. Can you explain how they put 300,000 additional people on the rolls in the last minute, and then maybe offer some solutions on how you're going to change that, maybe through job creation and things like that?
They put the 300,000 extra people, and it's part of Obamacare, onto the rolls. Including saying, I remember them in debate, well, the federal government's going to pay for this. Well, they are for 2 years. And after 2 years, we pay for it. We Illinoisans pay for it. So, that's how they did it. But on Medicaid, we spend more per capita on Medicaid too than any state in America. And so, it's our largest state expenditure, but we're spending more on Medicaid per person than any, so we are clearly the welfare Medicaid capital of the United States. Senator Chris Lausen, who's now the Kane County Board Chairman, did a study that showed if we just had a Medicaid program that was sort of a Chevrolet or an Oldsmobile and not a Cadillac, we could save $2 billion a year. We need to manage Medicaid. There are no managers. Pat Quinn, nice man, terrible manager. Nobody's been managing Medicaid. We need, and management will give you better care. A child of a single mom or a senior citizen will get better care. More doctors will participate. You'll get better care for those who truly need it if you really manage it. And, innovation is part of it. And then last but not least, fraud. The New York Times, not exactly a liberal paper, says that 10% of Medicaid is fraud. And then Speaker Newt Gingrich always, when he cites that statistic, always goes, and gosh, can you imagine what it would be in a place like Illinois or Chicago? And he always gets a laugh wherever I'm at. I'm at legislators conference and Gingrich always throws in, and can you imagine what the fraud would be like in a place like Illinois or Chicago? If 10% of Medicaid is fraud, there's another couple billion. So, you do a program like the other states around us, you combat fraud, there's $4 billion. I showed we were $6 billion is sitting around unpaid in Springfield. There's 4 of the 6 right there. You grow your economy and boom, guess what? We're the economic capital of the Midwest again. So you gotta manage and you gotta know what you're doing. Being governor is all about running systems. The Department of Health and Human Services is like a big corporation. I've been there before, I've done it. And you gotta be innovative. Governors Edgar and Thompson, Speaker Daniels, those guys were innovative. They figured out better ways to do it. And, Lee was on Elmhurst Hospital, or he still may be on Elmhurst Hospital board. You look for innovative ways to provide better patient care. And it saves a lot of money, but most importantly, the people that really need it get it. So it's funny, the mayor of Teutopolis today asked me how come we don't put a picture on our food stamp card in Illinois. And, I told them we've been trying for years to put a picture. If you're going to get food stamps or have a welfare card in Illinois, they trade these cards. They trade them for booze, they trade them for cigarettes, they trade them for cash. And, most people can't believe that Representative Patty Belloc and I can't get a bill passed to put someone's picture on a welfare card. But that is the state of Illinois. It is a place where the city Democrats will block you on a lot of things for a lot of reasons that most people, regular people in Illinois, don't understand. But we could put a picture on a link card, and I think that would save money and save fraud as well in Illinois. So it's time we have a governor or somebody with common sense. I just happen to know who that somebody is. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? I will be happy to stick around. I thank you all for coming out on this beautiful, beautiful night. It's always great to be at Elmhurst College, but it's particularly nice to be here not only at Christmas time, but in the fall. I think the fall is one of the most beautiful times of year in Illinois, and especially on a campus as beautiful as Elmhurst College. So this is a great state, folks, and we together can make it work again. I want you to be 15 minutes again from your children and your grandchildren, and I want all the students of the U of I or Elmhurst College to stay in Illinois to work and not have to go to another state to find the kind of employment that they've been trained so well by our higher education institutions to do. Thank you all.